On the 5th anniversary of our marriage, my husband Alfred Winder died in love with another woman. The police told me that he had dismantled the brakes himself, allowing the car to speed off the cliff. Inside the car, the tightly embracing couple never let go, even in death. The news became a hot topic. Everyone said I was the murderer who forced feelings, while Alfred was the unwavering warrior of pure love until death. I was humiliated and pushed off a high building by the woman's parents. Reborn, I returned to the day Alfred and I fell in love. I stood at the entrance of the repair shop, silently turning away as I watched the falling wrench about to hit Alfred's legs. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Is this Sybil Barton, Alfred Winder's wife? When the police called, I had just bought the gift for our 5th anniversary, a limited edition camera Alfred had wanted for a long time. Yes, I am. Please come to the hospital. Your husband's car has fallen off a cliff and his body has been found. I'm sorry. The camera fell from my hand, the lens smashing into a horrifying crack. I hurried to the hospital to claim the body. Under the white sheet were two bodies tightly embracing each other. A man and a woman. The police said that the car Alfred was driving had been found. After investigation, it was determined that Alfred had dismantled the brakes himself, causing the car to speed off the cliff. The time of death was last night, the day I was on a business trip. If I hadn't come back early to prepare a gift for our anniversary, he would have died without letting me see him. The morgue was chillingly cold. The two bodies had pale faces but wore satisfied smiles. On their ring fingers were matching rings engraved with their initials. They had willingly died for love. What a tragically beautiful love story. Sorry, without your consent for an autopsy, we couldn't separate them. Please accept our condolences. All my emotions stuck in my throat. I hoarsely said, "No need, this is fine." I forced myself to suppress my discomfort and walked out of the hospital with difficulty. Suddenly, a middle-aged woman rushed over and slapped me. "You forced my son to his death." Expressionless, I asked, "And you are?" "I'm Alfred Winder's mother. I met Alfred at an auto repair shop. When we first met, Alfred was wearing a tank top, his tanned muscles particularly full. A few drops of sweat rolled down his well-defined face. And the red mole under his eye instantly made me fall into a young girl's infatuation. After going there many times, Alfred guessed my intentions. Until that day, a wrench fell from a height and almost hit his leg. I rushed over in time to shield him, resulting in a serious injury to my waist. I had never seen him so nervous. In the hospital, his rough, calloused hand tightly held mine, and he asked me, "Sybil, have you really decided to be with me?" "Yes." After that, our relationship gradually stabilized, and before we got our marriage certificate, Alfred told me that he had been an orphan since he was young and had no mother. So before the wedding, I took Alfred to meet my family, and we had a rather tense meal. "You are the only daughter of the Barton family, born with a silver spoon in your mouth, and now you want to be with a mechanic?" My brother overturned the entire table of food on the spot. With reddened eyes, I said, "Whether it was before or now, you have never given me the right to choose, have you?" It was also that day that I broke off with my family, and without anyone's blessing, I got the marriage certificate with Alfred. Now, Alfred's mother was standing right in front of me. "It's your fault my son is dead. Do you think money makes you special? Every day of the 5 years he was with you was torment for him. Do you understand a mother's feelings?" A mother. I gently held my lower abdomen. I could have been a mother too. I let out a cold laugh. He said it was torment. But in these 5 years, when have I ever forced him? If he was unhappy with the marriage, he could have divorced. Alfred's death for love was posted online, causing a stir. And his mother exaggerated the story, making me the culprit who destroyed their relationship. My identity was revealed online, sparking a wave of criticism. I heard the daughter of the real estate tycoon Barton family force the man to marry her. Does money make you special? If he didn't marry someone he didn't love, how could he prove his feelings through death? Even in death, their bodies were found holding each other. I was moved to tears. This is the true warrior of pure love. The stock price of Barton Group continued to fall due to the scandal. At the same time, Stella Burkert's parents found out my address from Alfred's mother. They barged in with people, grabbing me by the throat. "It must be you. How could our daughter took her own life? You must have tampered with the car. You must take responsibility." I calmly pushed her away. "The police have made the truth very clear. Besides, she's just a mistress. I wouldn't dirty my hands." How dare you call her a mistress?" I spoke coldly. "If I'm not mistaken, you, as parents, sold your daughter to a rich second generation to pay off debts, right? And now you start acting like a loving mother and father?" Just as I was about to press the call button for the police, Mr. Burkert panicked and said to the people behind him, "Hurry up and do it. They wanted to knock me out and kidnap me to force the Barton family to pay money." At the moment I got through the call, I broke through the crowd and jumped straight from the 13th floor. I was wrong. I made the wrong choice back then. With my death, I wouldn't cause trouble for the Barton family anymore. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing in front of the auto repair shop with my silver Lamborghini parked inside. Looking at this familiar scene, I realized I had been reborn and had returned to the day when Alfred Winder and I fell in love. Suddenly, a message popped up on my phone. It was sent from Alfred. "Miss Barton, your car is fixed." I was dazed for a moment and replied, "I'm busy today. I'll arrange for someone to pick up the car." After sending the message, I looked towards the empty auto repair shop. Alfred Winder, wearing a vest, wiped the sweat from his forehead and lit a cigarette. I quickly noticed a wrench teetering on the edge of the second-floor stairs. Just like in my previous life, it was about to fall directly onto Alfred's leg. I calmly turned around and called my brother. "Brother, my car is at the auto repair shop. I can't leave right now. Can you find someone to pick it up for me?" After the call, I was about to leave when I saw a woman holding a wedding invitation walk into the auto repair shop out of the corner of my eye. If I guessed correctly, this was Alfred's unforgettable ex, his true love, Stella Burkert. In my previous life, I had seen a diary of Alfred's. On the title page, there was a beautiful hand-drawn star. The diary meticulously recorded his deep feelings for Stella Burkert. 5 years ago, on the day he and I got together, he wrote, "Stella is getting married. I'm just a mechanic, unworthy of her. She's marrying a rich second-generation heir, only someone like that deserves her." But later, that rich heir didn't treat her well, and Alfred secretly went to see her. She's not doing well. It breaks my heart. I hope she sees the money I slipped to her. Stella Burkert saw it and returned to Alfred's side. Even though by then, Alfred and I were already married. Every night Alfred and I fought, and he lied about staying at the auto repair shop. He was actually stealing time alone with her. He wrote, "The days with Stella are the only times I feel warmth and relaxation. Marrying someone I don't love." That diary turned my 5 years of marriage into a joke, making it laughable how willingly I became a disgrace to my family for him. Until the end, on the day he decided to die with Stella, he mentioned me in a condescending manner. "I'm leaving with Stella. As for Sybil Barton, I'm only grateful to her." Lost in thought, I looked at the graceful figure not far away. She was indeed beautiful. Her small frame evoked a strong protective instinct. Stella Burkert noticed my gaze and looked over with some confusion. I gave her a faint smile and then silently left. The second time I saw Alfred was at Stella's wedding. I drove my Lamborghini and parked in front of the hotel where Stella's wedding was held, attracting a crowd of onlookers. Is she a friend of the bride or the groom? She looks like someone rich too. I slowly rolled down the car window and caught sight of Stella's husband, Daniel, with an unhappy expression. Feeling upstaged, he looked angrily at the woman beside him and asked, "Is she your friend?" Stella shook her head. At this moment, Alfred, sitting at the most secluded table, stood up unhurriedly in his most expensive suit, his tie perfectly straight. He calmly walked over and opened the car door for me. "Sybil, thank you for coming." Someone started heckling, "So she's the current girlfriend of the bride's ex." Another person even patted Alfred on the shoulder. "You've got good fortune, buddy, your girlfriend is both beautiful and rich." Only Stella and Daniel had sour expressions. But in front of the many guests, they still tried hard to force a smile. "I heard from Alfred that you're Miss Barton. Please take a seat." Miss Barton? The Barton family? Daniel belatedly realized my identity. "So you're the Barton family's daughter. You should have said earlier, we almost neglected you." "It's okay, I'll take care of Sybil," Alfred said, trying to hold my hand in front of everyone, but when he turned his head, he met my unfamiliar gaze. I avoided him. The day before, Alfred had indeed sent me a message, hoping I could accompany him to a friend's wedding. But my past life's experience told me that Alfred never loved me. Everything he did was always for Stella. I figured this time was no different. He wanted me to attend as his date just to provoke Stella, hoping to see her jealous because of me. Just like in my past life, every time without my knowledge, Alfred would bring me in front of Stella, deliberately displaying affection and care. I watched Stella's reaction with great interest. It was indeed unpleasant. It was Mr. Winder who fixed my beloved car. "Running into you here is quite a surprise." As soon as I finished speaking, the crowd began to murmur again. "What's going on? Isn't she his girlfriend?" Looks like Alfred was just being self-indulgent. Yeah, there's no way so many rich and beautiful women would fall for a poor car mechanic. Alfred's only got his looks going for him, maybe she's just toying with him. But isn't there someone here who looks even better than him? My gaze passed over Alfred and landed on Eric Burkert, who was sipping tea on the outskirts of the crowd. I stuffed the prepared wedding gift money into Daniel's hand and walked through the crowd to the round table where Eric was sitting. Only then did Eric slowly lift his head to look at me. Compared to 3 years ago, Eric had lost the boyishness on his face, his features now sharp and exuding maturity. His eyes were beautiful, a deep brown, with a striking red mole beneath one eye, making him particularly captivating. Just a faint glance was enough to make one's heart tremble. I forced myself to hold back my excitement, but tears unknowingly fell from the corners of my eyes. He was indeed here. "Miss Barton, do you know my cousin?" Stella asked. A friend of Eric's nearby whispered. Could she be here to ask for Eric's contact because she thinks he's handsome? "She's the 5th one today." Eric's calm and unperturbed eyes shifted slightly, and he interrupted, "No, she's my ex-girlfriend." His friends gazed towards me immediately filled with disgust. "Damn, you're the one who made Eric lock himself in the house for a whole week. What bad luck, hurry up and leave. Our Eric can't afford to get involved with you." I opened my mouth, just about to say something, but Eric stopped them. "It's okay, it's all in the past." Liar. In my past life, if it weren't for his friends showing me the letters Eric never sent after his death, I would have never known that he remained unmarried. His so-called suitable person to marry was just a lie to deceive me. I, Eric Burkert, and Alfred Winder happened to be sitting at the same table. The atmosphere was a bit subtle. Alfred occasionally glanced at Eric. They did look very similar, especially the red mole at the same spot. That's also why I was attracted to Alfred's face at first glance. But now, comparing the two of them sitting together, whether in temperament or features, they are different. I handed the tea to Eric. "I heard you're getting married soon?" "Yes, introduced by the family." Eric received the tea with both hands, answering calmly without showing any emotion. Still lying to me. Just like in the past life, he said his family introduced him to someone suitable for marriage. He said the girl was nice. He told me not to worry. He wished me happiness. Liar. I poured out my tea and instead filled my cup with white wine. Smiling, I raised my cup, then, "I wish you happiness." Eric raised his teacup, "Thank you." With that, I furrowed my brows and downed the entire cup of white wine. As the glass was about to be empty, Eric suddenly grabbed my wrist, "You don't need to finish it." Drinking too fast, I wobbled. I fell onto Eric. The sound of 2 hearts beating overlapped. The wine in the glass slightly overflowed, droplets trickling down his Adam's apple, disappearing into his collar. I slightly stood on tiptoe, my lips just touching his Adam's apple, where the wine had just passed. Softly, I said, "Eric, I know you don't have a girlfriend." He didn't push me away. "You're drunk." I put down the glass and went outside to get some fresh air. Although this cup of white wine wasn't enough to make me lose consciousness, it did make me a bit dizzy. After blowing in the cold wind for a long time, I felt somewhat sober. I quietly watched outside, where the occasionally bustling road flickered with dim lights. Tears unknowingly fell from my eyes. The scenes of Eric speaking softly to me seemed to still be in front of me. He said he would work hard to earn money so that my family would approve of him. But for some reason, one day he suddenly broke up with me, saying my brother gave him a large sum of money. Since then, he disappeared from my world like he evaporated. I knew he didn't do it for the money, but I just couldn't forgive him for giving up on our relationship so easily. 3 years. Actually, 3 years is a long time, long enough to make a once unforgettable love fade to the point of not remembering the details. Even that person can only be vaguely remembered as a silhouette. I almost forgot whether I still loved Eric or resented him for giving up on us so easily back then. Until I met Alfred Winder. I don't know how much of my love at first sight for Alfred was because he resembled Eric, and how much was because I wanted to spite my brother for breaking us up back then. Later, with one coincidence after another between Alfred and me, we became husband and wife. At that time, I thought the past was over. Living well in the present was the most important thing. But when the news of Eric's death came, when his friend sent me his unopened letters, my heart felt like it was being stabbed repeatedly, bleeding profusely, yet I was powerless. It turns out that missing someone really lasts a lifetime. As I pulled my thoughts back, the cold wind dried the tears at the corners of my eyes. I composed myself and returned to the hotel. Inside, it was chaos. I turned to a staff member and asked, "What's going on?" The bride drank too much and caused a scene. The wedding might not happen. I looked around the entire hall but didn't see Stella Burkert or Daniel. It seemed the wedding was over just like that. But I hadn't yet gotten Eric's current contact information, so it wasn't time for me to leave. I scanned the people in the distance and didn't notice the guests rushing past me. "Watch out." Suddenly, someone protected my shoulder. I avoided the oncoming crowd. Eric's large hand on my shoulder slowly released. "Watch where you're going." For a moment, I felt a bit dazed. 3 years ago, he had also protected me in a crowded place and reminded me to watch where I was going and not to look down at my phone. I always found him nagging and teased him with a smile. "Isn't it fine as long as you're here?" He would helplessly rub my head. "I can't always be there to look after you." Those words turned out to be prophetic. I looked up at Eric, trying to see what he was really thinking. Eric avoided my intense gaze. "I'll go check on Stella." "I'll go with you." Just as Eric and I turned around, Alfred appeared less than a meter away, looking like he had been waiting for us for a long time. The world suddenly went quiet. Alfred looked at me with a complex expression. Our eyes met. Surprisingly, I saw a hint of displeasure in his eyes. After all, we had been married for 5 years. Many things were understood without being said. For instance, I knew from his expression that he had also been reborn. He wanted to win back his true love. I wanted to save my first love. We were actually not in conflict. "Is there something you need, Mr. Winder?" Eric subconsciously stood in front of me. Alfred withdrew his gaze indifferently. "Like you, I'm looking for Stella." At the end of the corridor, in the dressing room. I pushed the door open, and it was pitch black inside, with a strong smell of wine. Stella was leaning in a dark corner, still holding an unfinished bottle of red wine. Alfred rushed ahead of us and held Stella in his arms. He knelt down, gently cradling Stella, his voice trembling. "Stella, it's me." Stella, drunk, lifted her moist eyes and clutched Alfred's clothes tightly. "Alfred, if you were just a bit richer, I would go with you. I am not interested in their feelings." When Eric left them some space and went out, I followed him. Sorry, it must have been awkward. Was it because Stella found out that Daniel was seeing multiple people that she did that at the wedding? Eric didn't expect me to know so much about Stella. "Yeah. It's getting late, let me take you home." Eric bought a new car. Compared to his old motorcycle, this car, which costs just over $10,000, is much better. Afraid I wouldn't be used to it, he adjusted the seat for me. I stopped his busy hands. "No need to adjust, it's fine as it is." When we were together before, I bought him a car as a gift. But he hardly ever used the car keys, only driving his nearly 10-year-old motorcycle. The only time he used it was to meet my brother. Later, I took the car keys back from my brother. The car still had the smell of new leather, indicating that Eric hadn't driven it much. And he probably only drove it this time for his cousin's wedding. I have always been extravagant. And he has always been frugal. Where do you live now? Eric held his phone with his long fingers and handed it to me. You can navigate. The car started slowly. Eric turned on the car radio, and we listened to it all the way, without a chance to talk. The car soon stopped downstairs. Eric pulled the handbrake, and the car was so quiet that we could only hear our breathing. I unhurriedly unbuckled my seatbelt, glimpsing Eric's stiff posture, but he wouldn't look back at me. The lipstick mark I left on his collar was particularly eye-catching. I deliberately teased him, "Don't you want to come up for a bit?" Upon hearing this, the man in the driver's seat stiffened, his jaw tight. In the dim light, I couldn't see the emotions in his eyes. "Miss Barton." Hearing this address, I interrupted him. "Eric, if you're going to say something disappointing, then don't say it. I won't be happy." I opened the car door and walked upstairs in a huff. Eric also opened his car door, his hand hanging by his side suddenly clenched. My heart went cold, and I was thinking about what method to use next time when Eric suddenly grabbed my hand from behind. He hugged me into his arms. Every movement was careful. His familiar scent enveloped me. The emotion in his eyes surged like a flood breaking through a dam. His voice was very light, even trembling. "Sybil, long time no see." My tears fell uncontrollably. I clung tightly to his chest. Reunions after a long time apart are always passionate. At this moment, his eyes were filled with emotions that were worlds apart from his usual demeanor. Shedding the polite and distant exterior, his fervent heart was evident. His kiss was pressing and highly aggressive. He dominated, swallowing me bit by bit. Until I was almost out of breath, he slowly let go of me, gently kissing my earlobe. His hair brushed against my neck. I felt a warm tear drop on my shoulder. He relaxed, lying beside me, breathing heavily. He didn't go any further. Seeing his slightly reddened eyes, I felt a bit heartbroken. "I missed you a lot, Eric." In my previous life, after I got married, I would still hear about him from mutual friends. For instance, that he had started a big company and became a famous young entrepreneur in the industry. But in my previous life, I thought we were just a thing of the past. It wasn't until the news of his car accident death came that I realized that some feelings pressed deep in my heart hadn't disappeared. We just chose to ignore them. Emotions peaked when I received his letters one after another. He loved me far more than I loved him. Even though he never disturbed me, every word was filled with longing. Later I found out that after I got married, the Barton family went through a major crisis, and it was Eric who helped without any grudges. I am selfish. Since Alfred never loved me, in this new life, we should not entangle with each other anymore. I want to find my moon. My stomach growled inappropriately. It was a bit silly. Eric chuckled lightly and asked, "What do you want to eat?" I covered my belly. "I want noodles." Eric put on his clothes and went to the kitchen. I took my phone from the bedside and checked the messages, one of which was from Alfred. "Miss Barton, did you get home safely?" It was somewhat amusing. Now that he has the true love he wanted, he's still maintaining appearances with me. "What are you looking at?" Smiling so happily. Eric came in with a steaming bowl of 3-flavor noodles. I turned off my phone and placed it back on the bedside table, my attention instantly captured. Nothing important. Eric's cooking skills were excellent. He never wasted any ingredients and could make the most out of them. I was satisfied with the aroma, eagerly picking up a bite with my chopsticks. It's just that there are too few things at home, limiting your performance. Next time I'll definitely prepare more." Eric frowned slightly, puzzled. "Next time?" I looked up, blinked, and asked back, "Is there no next time?" "There will be a next time. We still have many, many next times." Eric is currently in the startup phase, so being too busy to reply promptly is commonplace. And I have my own job too. Eric and I are secretly dating, no one knows. He occasionally talks about Alfred, saying he has won the lottery many times and his financial situation has improved a lot. For example, he has made some investments with his assets, and every time he has incredible luck. In my previous life, I didn't notice that Eric and Alfred, although seemingly in similar situations, are actually worlds apart. Eric never resorts to shortcuts and always starts his business honestly, never chasing the high profits that come with risks. But Alfred is someone who loves risks. Even if he can remember a few lottery numbers and investments from his past life, this world has long since changed. Many things won't follow the same trajectory as before. The next time I saw Stella Burkert was in the obstetrics and gynecology department. I was accompanying my sister-in-law for her prenatal checkup, and she was already pregnant. Alfred, who was by her side, saw me too. Alfred lowered his head and said something to Stella, then turned and walked towards me. "Do you have time to talk?" I followed him to the empty corridor. Alfred's gaze fell on my lower abdomen, his voice hoarse. "Are you pregnant too?" He asked again, "Is it Eric's?" "You and him." Alfred's eyes darkened. "Next time, don't come alone." "I'll come with you." I laughed. "You accompany me?" "Alfred, we should just be strangers who met a few times, right?" Alfred's voice was bitter. "Take good care of yourself." I don't know if what he's doing now is because of his guilt for the past. In my previous life, I did have a child. But on an ordinary rainy night when I was going home alone, I slipped and had a massive hemorrhage, resulting in a miscarriage. It was a passing driver who took me to the hospital. In such heavy rain, why did your husband let you go home alone? At that time, I didn't know that Alfred wasn't busy for our future but was spending the night with another woman at the auto repair shop. But none of that matters now. The nurse called Stella's name. Alfred hurried back to her side. Stella glanced at me and asked, "When did you become so familiar with Sybil Barton?" Alfred shook his head. "Just happened to meet, had a brief chat." I also went back to my sister-in-law's side to accompany her for the checkup. "Sybil, you're not that young anymore. Do you have any men you like?" "I used to, but my brother didn't agree, so it didn't work out." "Your brother always spoils you the most." "I'll tell you a secret, when he proposed to me, my brother didn't agree either." "What could we do?" "In the end, he still married me." "So, Sybil, you don't need to consider your brother when you like someone." "Thanks, you're so good." Eric's company was growing bigger and bigger, leading to inevitable business exchanges with Barton Group. Today, Eric came to Barton Group to discuss a collaboration. My brother had called me to his office beforehand. "Eric is coming later, don't show up." I agreed on the surface, but in my heart, I was already planning where to intercept Eric later. As I left the office, Eric sent me a message. "I brought you a gift and left it at the front desk, remember to pick it up later." On a whim, I asked him, "Are you nervous?" "My secret boyfriend." Eric replied, "Very nervous." When I reached the front desk, Eric had already taken the elevator to the top floor to discuss the collaboration with my brother. The gift was a new necklace from my favorite jewelry designer. I quickly put on the necklace and followed them to the top floor meeting room. Standing at the door, I could vaguely see the two of them through the frosted glass. Both my brother and Eric were people who kept their personal and professional lives separate. Even though they had had disagreements before, business matters were handled professionally. After the meeting ended, my brother's expression stiffened when he saw me at the door. "What are you doing here?" I lifted my chin slightly. "I'm waiting for my boyfriend." Eric happened to walk over, and I immediately linked my arm with his. "Brother, let me introduce you to my boyfriend." My brother was furious. But he had just signed the contract with Eric, so he couldn't turn hostile. Eric nodded and greeted, "Brother, please take care of me in the future." My brother, fuming, walked away. "Don't call me brother. You scared your brother like that, it'll be even harder for me to marry you in the future." I was slightly taken aback. "Marry me?" Eric's smile faded as he spoke seriously. "Actually, your brother is right. I don't deserve you right now. So, Sybil, if you find a better option, you can leave me anytime without any burden." "Fool. He is so outstanding. He will have a brilliant future." After we went public with our relationship, I moved my things into Eric's house. Eric initially disagreed, saying it was too early for us to live together and that it would harm my reputation. My brother has my sister-in-law to persuade him, and besides, my brother isn't your girlfriend. Eric couldn't argue with me. In that house, I found several unopened letters in a drawer. And a bottle of sleeping pills. The most recent letter was dated the day before we reunited. In other words, since we got together, Eric hadn't written any more letters. When Eric saw me in his study, he wasn't angry. I held up the sleeping pills and asked him, "Did you have trouble sleeping before?" "Yes, but don't worry. It's much better now." Eric took the sleeping pills from my hand and explained, "Don't overthink it. I just couldn't sleep due to the stress of starting a business." I hugged his waist. "Hold me for a while." "Okay." Eric's company continued to do well, and the collaboration with Barton Group was very successful. However, Eric spent less and less time with me, most of his time being occupied by the company. One night, while waiting for Eric to come home, I had fallen asleep on the sofa. Outside, the rain was pouring. I dreamed of Eric's death in our past life and Alfred's betrayal. I woke up with a start, heart pounding. When I opened my eyes, Eric had returned and was about to cover me with a blanket. I hugged him tightly. His voice was gentle. "Did you have a nightmare? If I had known you were scared alone, I would have come back earlier." I then noticed the dampness on my arm and realized that Eric's clothes were soaked. "Why are you all wet?" "I remembered you liked the cakes from this shop, and since they were still open, I bought one for you." On the coffee table was a delicate little cake, its box slightly wet from the rain. "In such heavy rain, you still got out to buy a cake? You waited for me so long. It's just a small cake. Come and try it." What I hadn't received before seemed to be gradually filled by another person. While I was trapped in a nightmare, fearing a repeat of past events, someone else was delighted by the thought of me enjoying my favorite cake. The cake was my favorite chocolate flavor. Very sweet. Very delicious. From Eric, I heard that Stella's belly is getting bigger and bigger, almost impossible to hide. So both families are busy with the engagement. I attended Stella and Alfred's engagement party as Eric's girlfriend. At the engagement party, Alfred looked very tired. Stella was also frequently making things difficult for him, showing a lot of impatience. Below the stage, Eric whispered to me that Alfred had invested most of his money before and lost it all, leading to a big fight between him and Stella. After the ceremony, I followed Eric backstage, only to hear the two of them arguing at the door. "Alfred Winder, why can't you be like my cousin? Why can everyone else do it, but you can't? How am I supposed to believe you can give me and the baby happiness? We might as well not have the baby." Alfred pressed his temples, his tone also unpleasant. "Why do you have to push me so hard? I've been very good to you. If you keep this up, I'll regret my current choice. What other choice do you have? Sybil Barton?" Alfred's body stiffened, and he didn't explain for a long time. Stella sneered. "What, did I hit the nail on the head? Every time you hear about Sybil Barton, you pay extra attention. When we go out on dates, the dishes you order aren't the ones I like. I never eat chocolate, but all the cakes you buy are chocolate flavored. Alfred Winder, do you really think I can't tell?" I looked nervously at Eric and mouthed, "I didn't know about this." Eric said, "I believe you." Stella looked at him like he was trash. I suddenly became curious. Since Stella never liked Alfred, why did she choose to die with him in the previous life? When Stella left, she happened to see Eric and me waiting outside to give the gift money. At the same time, Alfred also looked towards the door. He asked hoarsely, "You heard everything? Can I talk to you? Mr. Winder, if you have something to say, please say it quickly. My boyfriend is still waiting for me." I looked at the current Alfred. He didn't seem at all like Eric. I was truly blinded before. Alfred tentatively approached a little, asking, "Is Eric Burkert your first love?" I stepped back, keeping a distance from him. That's not quite right. Eric is the only boyfriend I've ever had. What about me? Alfred lowered his head, tightly clutching his palm. I smiled lightly. "You are also with the person you love, aren't you?" Alfred slowly raised his eyes, tears glistening in them. But I seem to have missed a better person, someone more worthy of my love. Miss Barton, I had a dream. In the dream, we were a married couple for 5 years, very much in love. But I personally destroyed the relationship I should have cherished, even choosing to end it in the most extreme way. I thought, when Stella came back to me, saying we would live and die together, it was true. But when I woke up, I realized that it was all a lie. She doesn't love me. So, Stella Burkert never wanted to die with him. It was only Alfred who took her joke seriously, leading to the double suicide incident. Although I didn't feel sorry for Stella, the man immersed in self-pity scared me even more. I coldly pushed him away. Since it was your own choice, you don't have the right to regret it. Even if you could do it over again, the person in your dream would never forgive you. Not far away, Eric was still waiting for me. Suddenly, Alfred hurriedly asked, "Sybil, have you also been reborn?" With my back to him, I waved my hand casually. Eric's company successfully went public. Just like in the previous life, he became the youngest entrepreneur. And on that day, he proposed to me in public. Under countless roses, there was me and him, surrounded by happiness. Later, I heard that Stella gave birth to a child, but the paternity test results showed that it wasn't Alfred's. Only then did Stella confess that while she was dating Alfred, she had an affair with another married boss. Because she got pregnant, the boss's wife came to confront her and she had no choice but to be with Alfred and lied to him that the child was his. I don't remember the last time I saw Alfred. It was probably 5 years after I married Eric, when our family of 3 went on a trip and our car broke down. We happened to go to Alfred's auto repair shop. He looked much older than before, and Eric and I almost didn't recognize him. But now, we are more like strangers. There was nothing to say. "Mummy, that man looks a bit like Daddy, just older." I pinched my baby's nose. Mummy used to think so too, but now, they don't look alike at all. At this moment, Eric walked towards us with a smile, holding 2 small cakes in his hand. I saw them up ahead, so I bought them while the car was being fixed. "Let's go." He picked up our child and held my hand. "Let's go, my 2 treasures."